West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
When it comes to the impeachment trial, let's take a look at some of the arguments that we are hearing from Senate Republicans so far. Listen.
Well, first of all, I think the trial is stupid. I think it's counterproductive. We already have a flaming fire in this country, and it's like taking a bunch of gasoline and pouring it on top of the fire.
A trial after the president has left office is beyond the Senate's constitutional authority. I think a lot of Americans are going to think it's strange that the Senate is spending its time trying to convict and remove from office a man who left office a week ago.
Do you believe Donald Trump committed an impeachable offense?
To begin with, I think it's a moot point, because I think right now Donald Trump is no longer the president. He is a former president.
Yes, but they're trying to prevent him from running again because he committed crimes against our country and incited a riot on the Capitol and all that. But let's just put it aside. Then there's House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy doing his best to have his cake and eat it too. Let's go through his waffling. On January 8th, Punchbowl News reported that McCarthy got into a, quote, screaming match with President Trump, called on him to release a statement denouncing that mob that stormed the Capitol. He stood up. On January 12th, Axios reported that in a tense phone call with Trump, McCarthy told the president that it wasn't Antifa at the Capitol. He said, quote, "It's MAGA. I know. I was there." And here's what McCarthy said on January 13th.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Yes, correct. But then after, just a week after saying the president bears responsibility for the Capitol attack, McCarthy said this.
Leader McConnell has said that former President Trump and other important people provoked those folks to come to the Capitol. Do you believe that former President Trump provoked?
I don't believe he provoked if you listen to what he said at the rally.
Okay. And now in an interview that aired last night, McCarthy is doing his best President Trump after Charlottesville. There are bad people on both sides. Remember that? He said everyone has some responsibility for the violence that broke out on January 6th.
I thought the president had some responsibility when it came to the response. If you listen to what the president said at the rally, he said, demonstrate peacefully. I also think everybody across this country has some responsibility. Think about 4 years ago after the President Trump was sworn in. What happened the very next day? The title was Resist.
Bill Kristol, help me understand this man.
It's too depressing, Mika. Can't we just enjoy Tom Brady's great victory and stick with that? Look, Kevin McCarthy is the Republican Party today. He doesn't really like Trump. He, to the degree he still has a conscience and principles, he's disturbed by some of the things Trump did and didn't do, but he is not going to take on the base of his party, and it is a big base. I keep reading people saying, why won't the Republicans just throw Trump overboard? I would love it if they did, but politically they are scared to. It's that simple, and they half agree. Some of them have internalized this to the degree that they are not so opposed to pressure, to violence, to intimidation, if it's on their behalf. So what's happening is McCarthy is, I think, a perfect example of where the party is, unfortunately. Whether the Senate could be different. I mean, one of the biggest things that happened on January 6th was the House voted by almost 2-1 to overturn the election results in Arizona and Pennsylvania. Really an astonishing thing. With Kevin McCarthy voting yes, the leader of the Republican Party voting on the basis of no facts at all, to overturn, to deny accreditation to the electors. And that's really astonishing. We've sort of moved past that. We just, of course, 140 House Republicans voted that way. It's really unbelievable to me. The senators didn't. So the Senate is still a kind of different body, I would say, than the House. Mitch McConnell has a little bit more perspective. He has a 6-year term. He was just reelected. Ben Sasse was just reelected. Susan Collins was just reelected. Pat Toomey isn't running for reelection. I think there is some chance, as more revelations come out, as you all were saying, that the Senate looks at this and thinks, we just can't let this stand as acceptable practice. I kind of wish the impeachment article had been written more broadly to capture everything Trump did since the election to try to overturn it. The President of the United States tried to overturn a democratic, free, and fair election. That's the core of it. The incitement to riot is a major part of it. The failure, the dereliction of duty while the riot was going on to do anything about it is a very major part of it. But it is a broader thing. I think the House impeachment managers know this, and they'll try to make the broader case to the senators. And I don't think it's out of the question that some of the senators will decide they don't want to go down in history looking like Kevin McCarthy.
It is Monday, the 25th of January of 2020. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. We still have the resonance of that previous administration, the Agent Menace, the Orange Menace. There we go. Agent Orange Menace. Let's just put it all together. And wow, looks like Rudy's getting sued for over $1 billion. I guess he has a Dominion problem. I would if I had that sort of Damocles hanging over my head. Does Rudy care? I don't know. Do any of them? They'll double down. They'll somehow double down. They always do. Look at Kevin McCarthy. Look at that shill. Blaming everybody but Trump. Everybody. Oh, yeah. He doesn't blame him for the actual mob going in. Well, everybody else in the world does. We saw it happen in real time. Right? The old thing about physics. Push something, something else might fall over. Push a button, something might happen. And that's exactly what happened. And I think part of the Republican strategy is to push any type of investigation or trial out into the future, like maybe a couple of weeks from now, in the hopes that people will forget. And if you know America, yeah, they don't call it American amnesia for nothing. They don't call it Belarusian amnesia. They don't call it Russian amnesia, British amnesia, Irish amnesia. They don't call it any kind of amnesia but American amnesia. It is very peculiar to us. Some of us remember, and a lot of us don't. And we have to keep reminding them it's like reinventing the wheel every single time, Or another apt description might be telling people, don't set that fire. If you set that fire there, it's going to jump to the other houses, and then we're going to have a bigger problem. And they all yell at you, you're trying to muzzle me. And you go, no, man, you just got to show some self-restraint. And if you don't show self-restraint, someone's got to call you out on it. You're trying to muzzle me. And they let the houses burn down, and then they're the first ones to turn to you and say, Why aren't you helping put the fire out? Every single time. Boy, you live long enough on this luminous sphere and you see a few things repeated over and over and over, and it seems like everybody forgets that it happened before. American amnesia. Very peculiar to us. Well, we do have a day ahead of us, and, impeachment articles are going to be sent. And like I said, they're going to try to push it out in a couple of weeks. Maybe people will forget what happened on January 6th, okay? Maybe they will. Hopefully they won't. So much news. Well, it was, I have to admit, a much quieter weekend than what we have experienced in the last 4 years. There was no Muslim bans. Nope. Though I am hearing this, and within the younger elements in my own extended family and immediate too, when I say younger members, like grandkids who are becoming of a certain age, and, they're starting to learn a few things, but, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And I'm already getting this like, here it is, the 5th day, and, Joe hasn't done enough. Wow. Okay. Well, tell it to the slaves who tried to live through Reconstruction. Okay, the former slaves. Tell it to them. And they would say, well, time to have change, and it has to happen now. Putting it off and putting it off and putting it off is wrong. And I know. But it's not as if you can just, march through that skirmish line of bayonets. You kind of want to maybe not have the bayonets there. Let's not do that. So I've noticed that, Joe still hasn't stopped the expansion of the universe. And if he doesn't, we could turn into a very cold and lonely expanse, flung far away from each other with no opportunity to be able to cuddle and have warmth, because we'll be out in the cold of the space, the universe, the ether. We need to pull all that back. Need to pull it back, get some thermal energy a little closer at hand. Come on, Joe. What's wrong with you? All right. Well, 4 years of what we had to put up with Trump. It's, let's blame the current guy for wearing his dead son's watch. All right. It's a Rolex. Joe's not an everyman. He has a Rolex. Well, I don't know about you, but every man I know has a Rolex. So, and some of them are like truck drivers even. How dare you? God. And if they're not a Rolex, they got knockoffs of Rolex, because we live in America and we're supposed to be consumers. Why is it that right-wing prosperity gospel evangelical white Christian repugs who just say, oh yeah, we're all about consumerist America, buy American, blah, blah, blah. And then they say that, but Democrats can't consume, Democrats can't buy anything. What? Here we are in consumerist America, and they're whining about us consuming. Oh, we might attach some sort of meaning to the advertising that's been built around a brand for decades. Gotta have a Chevy, or gotta have a Lincoln. Okay, Joe's not an everyman because he has a Rolex, please. That is just... And if you check each and every single one of the arms of those people that said that, yeah, they probably got a Breva. Yeah, something a lot more expensive than a Rolex. I mean, come on. Trump wore prominently a $45,000 watch. Beau had, an $9,000 watch? And I still don't know how he got it. Did he get it for some sort of service? In some fashion, a business, you get a watch when you move on. Not unusual to get a fairly expensive watch in some quarters, but a $45,000 watch prominently displayed in the worst interior design in the history of interior design. Dictator chic. Even the dictator chic interior designers were offended by his, and you know who I'm talking about, Trump, his interior design conceits. Where were the breathless articles about that? None. I mean, we made jokes about it on the left, but, we've been muzzled. Haven't we? Were we whining about it? No, we just keep going on. And I love the fact that Hawley is whining about being muzzled on the front page of like a major paper. Jesus. Here we are, out here in podcast world. Well, it's a little bit different because, look, what we're trying to do is, and I'm just extending the whole Daily Kos ethos. We need to find more and better Democrats and get them elected. All right? And if it turns out that only the Democrats are left standing when we have only a supposed one party, when the Republicans are like off the map, I know they're going to, rise like some sort of evil phoenix into something else, like maybe the Nazi Party, or they'll call it something else, America First. But still, if it's just us Democrats, we're going to have a parliament. Do we really want a parliament? Look, we don't want to, we're going to split up the Democratic Party? No. That's what will happen too. We'll have a parliament. And trust me, I don't think a parliament is going to work very well in America. It's better just to have two going at it. I know it's reductionist and it's lazy, but hey, it's now. And what is up for now? We'll get into the philosophical aspects of what it means to, live for the now and plan for the future. You can do both, all right? One is supposed to be for the other, excuse me. Okay, it's Monday morning. And on the rest of the menu, as I mentioned here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, a federal judge in Alabama gave 5 years probation to a white ex-cop who admitted to obstructing investigators on charges he beat a black driver. Yeah, just, hey, go ahead. He was going to get into a federal lockup, and they probably thought, when they find out he's a cop, they're going to beat the crap out of him. Well, who's he going to get beat up by? Other cops in prison? Jeez. U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell, yes, that Beryl Howell, set aside a lower court order and blocked the release of one of the zip-tie D.C. insurgents. Yes, indeed. You're not getting released to your mom, and you get a Whopper with cheese on the way over. And state insurgent lawmakers want to allow everybody who is white to carry a concealed firearm without a permit. Oh, is that gun fail? I don't know. I need to ask David. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Estonia will be led by a female prime minister for the first time in the Baltic country's history. And some sad news. Former member of parliament, minister and resistance fighter against the Greek 1967 to 74 dictatorship, Sifis Valyrakis, has been found dead at sea at age 77. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. But at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, right off to the right of the page is our chat room link, right there by the social media scroll. The chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and thank you, Kelly, for doing so. And did you know, I don't know if you heard, but to the left of that chat room link that is near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And if you haven't heard, you could possibly, if you could afford it, to buy, for instance, an espresso-type coffee drink, and if you could afford to send those funds to us once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars, because I don't know if you heard, we have a lot of experience in stretching those dollars, almost 10 years. Yeah, it's coming up. And why do we stretch dollars? Well, we stretch them because we pay our bills. And when we pay our bills, they allow you to do a lot of things. Now, we're not getting the Soros money. We've been waiting. And I'll just take the interest. I mean, the interest alone, we might be able to build a media empire that would surpass even Murdoch. But until then, we are reliant on what we can pull out of our own wallets and help from you, because you are truly our biggest contributor. And so please, if you could, that really helps us out. We have been making purchases of hardware, because, doing a 10-year run, you kind of go through some workhorse machinery. Got to put them out to pasture, so to speak. Especially when there's operating systems and software that isn't being supported anymore. How dare they? That's like planned obsolescence. Almost like they planned it. Well, we have to live in that sort of world, and thank you for your generosity, because it has been very generous. And here we are. All right. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of me, and who am I? I am Justice Putnam, and you can find me at Justice Putnam. How simple is that? All one word. And the reason maybe you might want to follow me there is that I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's daily, for each of the 5 shows that we do a week. And I should mention the music show on Sunday nights. Yeah, at 8 to 9 p.m. on Sunday nights, Pacific. The Justice Department, Musique Sans Frontières, Music Without Borders. Check it out. Or by podcast, too. Anyway, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before show times. And put that out on Twitter and other social media platforms, and you know who they are. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and I mentioned podcasts. So pick up podcasts on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. In podcast land. All right, let's get into this first offering. Some of these examples of the 2 elements of justice in America, and I'm not talking about me. There's lots more of me where I come from, not just limited to 2. Please. Anyway, the 2 elements of justice that exist in this great United States of America is always exemplified in how, kid gloves are handed to certain, like a mass murderer, like the one that killed all those black parishioners, and I should say assassinated a state elected, a state senator, Dylan Roof, and they bought him a Whopper with cheese. I bring up the Whopper with cheese. While they were taking him to booking, not even to prison, just to booking. Oh, are you hungry? You want a Whopper with cheese? Let's go through the drive-thru. We'll get you one there. And they did. In that situation, they didn't release him to his mom. But yeah, they're releasing a lot of insurgents to their moms. Oh, they're good people. Oh, you tried to commit espionage and sell state secrets to the Russians? Oh, well, we'll just release you to your mom. All right. Yeah, I heard and read the judge's verdict from the bench, when they were sentencing her and all that. But still, it's with this grand, lofty idea about what the Constitution is. They're teaching her a lesson like the Constitution works. They're going to release you to your mom. Uh-huh. Well, Khalif Browder was dying, essentially, for 3 years in Rikers. 2 years in solitary. I sometimes make the mistake. I say he was 3 years in solitary. 2 years is enough, but 3 years in Rikers. 2 of those in solitary. Out for not a very long time, and then committed suicide because of the damage done, and he was never charged, never allowed out on bail. He was not released to his mom, and no one bought him a Whopper with cheese. So that's why articles like this one out of the Associated Press by anonymous Associated Press staff really burns me up. A federal judge in Alabama has given 5 years of probation to a white ex-policeman who admitted trying to obstruct investigators looking into charges that he beat a black driver who had gotten into an argument with his wife. Former Selma police officer Matthew Blaine Till pleaded guilty in September to 3 counts of obstructing justice. Although prosecutors asked for prison time, U.S. District Judge Matthew Beaverstock put him on probation. As part of his plea agreement, Till will no longer be able to work in local, municipal, state, or federal law enforcement, nor as a corrections officer or private security guard. Oh, really? So he can't do any harm anywhere else then, apparently, huh? Till and former Dallas County Sheriff's Deputy John Matthew Tacone face state charges of felony second-degree assault and misdemeanor unlawful imprisonment and obstructing governmental operations. Oh, he gets put out on probation. Their state trial is scheduled in September. News outlets reported last September that Till's wife called him April 30th after a road rage dispute with a black guy in a red Charger, which the 2 officers chased down and pulled over. A physical struggle started after Till tried to handcuff the man. While the man asked what he had done, the 2 on-duty officers hit his face and head, and Till pulled out his gun and threatened to kill him. And that was according to Dallas County District Attorney Michael Jackson when the assault charges were announced. The state charges were brought a week after Till pleaded guilty to the federal charges. As part of that plea, he admitted that he had used force against a citizen while on duty. And that is a quote. Then told another law enforcement officer multiple times not to tell investigators about his wife's call. More anonymous staff at the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A federal judge, meaning, yes, Beryl Howell, blocked the release of a Tennessee man who authorities say carried flexible plastic handcuffs during the riot at the U.S. Capitol earlier this month. U.S. District Judge Beryl A. Howell for the District of Columbia set aside an order by a judge in Tennessee concerning the release of Eric Munchel of Nashville. Howell stayed the lower court's order pending a review. After testimony at a detention hearing, U.S. Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Frensley for the Middle District of Tennessee determined Friday that Munchel wasn't a flight risk and did not pose harm to the public. Federal prosecutors have argued that Munchel's offenses are serious enough to detain him pending trial to ensure the community's safety. Now, I should just juxtapose this with people who splattered paint on a federal building, the outside of it. They never even stormed the inside, just splattered some paint on the outside that was washed off. They're still sitting in jail. Okay, just saying. Did I mention that they were not white supremacists? Oh, I should have, huh? According to court records, an FBI search of Munchel's home turned up the tactical gear he wore in the January 6th storming of the Capitol. 5 pairs of plastic handcuffs, multiple weapons, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a drum-style magazine. Munchel is charged with violent entry and disorderly conduct on the Capitol grounds, conspiracy and civil disorder. He faces up to 20 years if convicted. Munchel had been in federal custody since his arrest on January 10, when he turned himself over to authorities. In a memorandum in support of detention, prosecutors said Munchel traveled to Washington with his mother, Lisa Eisenhart, who has also been charged in the Capitol riot. Hey, it's a family plan. The two participated in Trump's Stop the Steal rally, in which the former president repeated his baseless claims of election fraud and exhorted the crowd to march to the Capitol and fight like hell. Yeah, I know GOP is out there saying, but he said do it peacefully. He said fight like hell about a dozen times and do it peacefully once in a mumble. You do it peacefully. Court documents allege Munchel went to the Senate chamber just minutes after the chamber had been evacuated. Munchel perceived himself to be a revolutionary in the mold of those who overthrew the British government in the American Revolution, according to court filings. He was dressed for combat, with combat boots, military fatigues, a tactical vest, gloves, and a gaiter that covered all of his face except for his eyes, documents state. He also wore a stun gun on his hip and mounted a cell phone to his chest to record the events. Whitehurst of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Republican lawmakers in several more states want to loosen gun restrictions by allowing people to carry concealed firearms without having to get a permit, continuing a trend that gun control advocates call dangerous. Well, of course, they're not the Republican Party anymore. They're an insurgent party. And it seems like it's nationwide, almost like a virus that they caught. 15 states already allow concealed carry without a permit. And lawmakers in 9 others have proposed allowing or expanding the practice. They saw how well it was handled in the riot in D.C. on January 6th. So let's just expand that now. All right. GOP governors are backing the changes in Utah and Tennessee. Another bill expanding permitless carry in Montana has passed the state house. Most states require people to do things like get weapons training and undergo a background check to get a permit to carry a gun hidden by a jacket or inside a purse. Groups like the NRA and state lawmakers who support gun rights argue those requirements are ineffective and undermine Second Amendment protections only because you changed the law and ignored most of the Constitution. Is that in this reporter's opinion? I think that's a historical fact. Okay, come on now. The proposed changes come after gun sales hit historic levels last summer because everybody was afraid that BLM and Antifa was going to kill them in their sleep. And what did they do? They got guns, not to protect themselves from BLM or Antifa or even from their own government. They got them so that they could storm the Capitol and take over the government in a violent insurrection. And now they want more white people to have guns because, trust me, I think there's going to be some counting gumballs in a jar to get a concealed gun permit if you're anything but white. Well, with that, why don't we go to our break? When we get back from our break, we will go through weather from around the world. Oh, that should calm us down. And we will also finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com. Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, What Sci-Fi Sky? In The Midnight Sky, producer-director George Clooney plays an astronomer who, in his youth, proposes human colonization of a newly discovered habitable moon around Jupiter. He dedicates his life to that dream, managing, in his zeal, to alienate his lover, inexplicably drawn to this clearly unavailable man, and to blow any chance at a family, which brings us to the start of the movie. Decades later, when a man-made disaster has killed the Earth's surface and survivors are heading off to shelters. Our astronomer is now old and dying of some kidney malfunction, but insists on remaining alone at an Arctic station, one of the last habitable places on Earth for now. His goal, to stay alive while both his body and his planet rot, long enough to warn a returning mission from Jupiter colony to abort their homecoming and go back. Yeah, so it's not a light film. I'll even spoil it a little and tell you that it isn't even like a 2001 or a Contact where an alien ex machina provides salvation, transcendence, or emotional catharsis at the end. It's not that kind of science fiction. But what kind of science fiction is it? Clooney gives The Midnight Sky the quiet, contemplative tone of serious SF, but the movie neither asks nor much less answers any hard or interesting questions. It keeps your attention, yes, but unless I miss something, we're left at the end with nothing more than a survival melodrama. I mean, maybe it lauds the masculine paradigm of, I sacrifice my emotional and physical life so that my descendants may prosper, but while that's there, the movie doesn't push the idea to be a theme. Still, Mark L. Smith has given us a smartly structured screenplay, and that he always maintains just enough mystery to keep you in the story. So what's sci-fi The Midnight Sky? Well, it ain't space opera, it ain't Star Wars. It gets much closer to Arrival, without actually arriving there. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American 60-Second Science. I'm Aline Augenbraun. Dogs were the first animals to be domesticated, and they stuck with us as we changed lifestyles from hunting-gathering to farming to city living.
The dog is a species that is intimately linked to human history.
Anders Bergstrom, a postdoc at the Francis Crick Institute in London. He and his colleagues studied the genomes of 27 ancient dog bones dug up around the world. They found that by 11,000 years ago,
we see that the dog started to diversify genetically. So we find evidence of at least 5 major lineages of dogs already at this time.
Dog remains have been found in Europe, Asia, and the Americas in a pattern similar to how humans moved and mixed.
To a large degree, the history of dogs seems to have been shaped by human history. So likely reflecting how when humans moved, they would have brought their dogs with them.
Ancient humans clearly found dogs to be very useful.
In the Arctic, there's evidence that sled dogs actually emerged very early, and people used them for the particular purpose of sledding, perhaps as early as 10,000 years ago.
A few modern breeds, like the African Basenji, New Guinea singing dog, or Australian dingo, are similar to one of the 5 ancient lineages. Most other modern breeds derive at least in part from European dogs, which came to dominate dog genomes.
If you go back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, there's a great diversity of dogs in Europe. But at some point, there was probably a single population that expanded and basically replaced other populations in Europe. So this was something that we did not predict, and you couldn't really see just from studying archaeology. But when we look at the DNA, we see that there's all this diversity in the past that is not represented in present-day dogs.
The study is in the journal Science, where you'll find maps of dog migrations over time. One odd finding. About 11,000 years ago, it looks like dogs spread more widely than humans did.
That's actually a process we don't really understand. So how could the dog spread so quickly and widely? We're not aware of any human migrations at this time that could have facilitated the spread of the dog. But somehow it spreads very quickly to human groups all across the world. Perhaps because it was a very useful thing for these early human hunter-gatherer groups.
Humans were also useful to dogs. Prehistoric Petcos didn't exist, so dogs probably ate what humans did. And as humans started to farm, both species quickly adapted to digest more grains. The number of copies of a starch-digesting gene in both humans and dogs increased in the generations following the invention of agriculture.
Yeah, so that's a very striking example of convergent evolution between humans and dogs. So in a way, it's kind of interesting to think of the dog as a kind of an evolutionary experiment that runs alongside human history and undergoes the same lifestyle changes that we do.
For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Aline Augenbraun.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Heart disease and stroke can be catastrophic. They're leading causes of death, disability, and healthcare spending in the U.S., yet they're largely preventable. Alarmingly, heart disease and stroke are taking a toll on middle-aged adults 35 to 64, with over 800,000 deaths and hospitalizations in 2016. Million Hearts is a national initiative focused on preventing 1 million heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular events by 2022. Coordinated actions by Million Hearts partners in communities, healthcare, and public health will keep people healthy, optimize care, and improve outcomes in populations at risk. Everyone has a part to play. Focus on the ABCs of heart health. A. Aspirin use when appropriate. B. Blood pressure control. C. Cholesterol management. And S. Smoking cessation. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs. For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. From a very young age, we're encouraged to eat fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, many Americans are not getting the message. Dr. Seung-Hee Lee Kwan is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables. Welcome to the show, Seung-Hee.
Thank you for having me.
Seung-Hee, what is the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
The federal guidelines recommend that adults consume at least 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit and 2 to 3 cups of vegetables each day. This is for adults who get less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Adults who are more physically active need more calories and thus should be eating more fruits and vegetables. 1 cup is about 12 strawberries or 1 large tomato.
How many people consume the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
We found that very few adults are getting enough fruits and vegetables. Just 12% are eating the recommended amount of fruits, and less than 1 in 10 eat enough vegetables. And consumption is lower among men, young adults, and adults living in poverty.
Why is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables so important?
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help with 3 things. 1, it can reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and deaths, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and even obesity. It can also add important nutrients that are commonly missing in Americans' diet. And it can help with weight management if adults consume fruits and vegetables instead of other calorie-dense foods.
How can we meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables?
Try to fill half of your plate with fruits or vegetables at each meal or every eating occasion. Making fruits and vegetables the focal point of your meal will help you meet your recommendations. For example, recent studies have shown that adults get most of their fruit during breakfast and snacks. So you can try adding berries to your morning oatmeal or grab a piece of fresh fruit as an afternoon snack. For vegetables, most adults eat them at dinner, so try adding more into your lunch by adding a side salad or packing a snack of baby carrots or grape tomatoes.
Are canned or frozen products just as good as fresh?
All forms of fruits and vegetables count towards meeting the recommendations. For the most health benefits, make sure that the fruits and vegetables you consume have a limited amount of salt, butter, sugar, or creamy sauces. When selecting canned fruits, choose the ones with lowest sugars. And for canned or frozen vegetables, choose those lower in sodium.
Where can listeners get more information about eating a healthy diet?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/nutrition or choosemyplate.gov.
Thanks, Seung-hee. I've been talking today with Seung-hee Lee Kwon about the importance of eating a healthy diet. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and death and add important nutrients to your diet. Make sure you're eating enough. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
What does your toothbrush, a fish dinner, and your running shoes have in common? Plastic. We now live on planet plastic. Billions of tons of waste from everyday products made of these chemical contaminants are strewn literally everywhere, on the highest mountaintops, into the deepest seabeds, in dense tropical jungles, and all across barren deserts. It's estimated, for example, that in less than 30 years, the gross volume of discarded plastic in our oceans will outnumber fish. From grocery carry-out bags to shower curtains to almost invisible bits of microplastics, the vast tonnage of this trash increases every minute, with an afterlife lasting centuries, wreaking havoc on ecosystems, destroying species, and infusing our water, air, soil, food, and us. Consider just two common products, your toothbrush and your sneakers. Until the 1930s, toothbrushes were made of degradable natural components. Since then, practically all have been throwaway plastic brushes. But there is no away, so nearly all of the trillions of brushes we've discarded in the past century are still out there, somewhere on the land or in our water. Moving from your teeth to your feet, consider that millions of sneakers are sold in the U.S. each year, advertised as being athletic and cool. What's uncool is that they're made almost entirely of melted and molded plastics that are practically impossible to recycle. So, after a short time in our closets, sneakers spend an eternity as globs of toxic plastic trash. This is Jim Hightower saying, we're being choked by our own synthetic waste, from billions of plastic bottles and cigarette filters to tons of straws and synthetic rubber tires. To help stop the insanity, contact Beyond Plastics, beyondplastics.org.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day workers at the Kent Avenue Power Plant in New York City struck at Brooklyn Manhattan Transit. The power plant served as the sole source of electrical power for the entire New York City subway system. Transport Workers Local Union 100 had been trying to beat back the company's push to form a company union through an educational organizing drive there. Out of the 505 workers at the plant, only 35 were TWU members. On this day, 2 boiler room engineers with 10 years on the job each were fired for their union activity and given 3 minutes to leave the plant. Inspired by the Flint sit-down strike, then still in progress, TWU President Mike Quill called for a sit-down to protest the dismissals. 31 workers locked themselves in, and Quill announced that if the 2 fired workers were not reinstated by 6 a.m. the next morning, all switches would be pulled, shutting down the entire transit system. He insisted that the BMT had long abused its workforce and was in violation of the new Wagner Act. Newspaper headlines screamed of a workers' insurrection at the power plant, and the BMT quickly called in company goons to threaten the hundreds of picketers surrounding the plant. Workers stood their ground and prevented strike-breaking forces from breaking through the barricaded entrances. They organized food brigades and gained support even from the newspaper reporters who helped with food deliveries. By 5:30 a.m. the next morning, the BMT gave in to the demands of Quill and the TWU and reinstated the fired workers. Impressed by the victory of the job action, the power plant was fully organized within 2 days. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing a winter weather watch, we had quite a dusting of snow. In fact, it piled up to several inches, and it was lovely. I actually posted a few pictures on Twitter showing the positively third degree, parkland type setting here that we had, and it was quite lovely. We are still in winter, of course. Well, we're expecting to be a little warmer today. Should be topping out about 41, much warmer than yesterday. Mostly cloudy skies, winds will be light and variable, and then partly cloudy skies tonight with winds remaining light and variable, and then cloudy early tomorrow with periods of light rain and snow later in the day. Highs maybe around 35. Winds will be out of the southeast at 5 to 10, and they're expecting between a mix of rain and snow, and they're only giving me rain totals. It looks like over 1/10 of an inch, but we are expected to have 3 inches or more of snow coming up each day of the week. So we'll see. Though there's supposed to be rain that may melt some of it away as well. Now, of course, confirmed cases of coronavirus here in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon are a little behind because these weekend totals have not been updated. But as it stands now, we have increased from a Friday total. Now we are at 7,703 confirmed cases with 95, which is another increase in confirmed deceased, and we'll get updates on those either tomorrow or late tomorrow. Pollen outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River proper is rated at none. The air quality index in the region is good at 27 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.96 inches. Visibility is down to 1 mile, and relative humidity is at 97%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a bunch of people who have crowdsourced because they got personal weather stations, and they put them in their ground somewhere on their property, and that's how they do it. And now we're going to get into weather from around the world, and we're going to come up with another spiel because we don't do the P-tape anymore. It's not necessary. London is 41 and sunny. Paris is 42 and sunny. Rome is 56 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 42 with light rain. Kabul is 34 with its winter smoke. Hong Kong is 60 degrees and clear. Tokyo is 43 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 74 and clear. San Francisco, California is 43 degrees and fair. And New York, New York is a freezing 29 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's sunny. And that is weather from around the world by people who have their own personal weather stations, and they're crowdsourcing with a bunch of other people who have their own personal weather stations, and they all come from around the world. Jerry Tanner of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Estonia's two biggest political parties clinched a deal to form a new government to be led by a female prime minister for the first time in the Baltic country's history, replacing the previous cabinet that collapsed into a corruption scandal earlier this month. The party councils of the opposition Center-Right Reform Party and the ruling left-leaning Center Party voted in favor of joining a cabinet headed by Reform's Prime Minister-designate and chairwoman Katja Kallas. Both parties are set to have 7 ministerial portfolios in addition to Kallas's prime minister post in the 15-member government, which would muster a majority at the 101-seat Riga-Goku parliament. Earlier this month, President Kyrtsi Kachuled, who is expected to appoint Kallas's cabinet in the next few days, said tackling Estonia's worsening coronavirus situation and the economic turmoil caused by the pandemic should be an immediate priority for the new government.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Demetrius Nellis of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Sifis Valyrakis, a former minister and resistance fighter against Greece's 1967-74 military dictatorship, who twice made daring escapes, was found dead at sea Sunday night. He was 77. Valyrakis had sailed with his inflatable craft at noon local time off the coast of the island of Evia in central Greece, where his family has a vacation home. His wife alerted authorities to his absence. His craft was found in the afternoon without him, and his body was found just after 8:30 p.m. local time, the Coast Guard said. Conditions at sea were good. A Coast Guard spokeswoman told the AP, adding that no cause of death can be given yet. Valyrakis was Minister of Public Order in charge of security and intelligence services from March of 95 to January of 1996. Earlier in the 80s and 90s, he was Deputy Public Order Minister, Sports Minister, and Deputy Transport and Communications Minister in the socialist government of Andreas Papandreou from 81 to 89 and 93 to 96. A noted Papandreou loyalist, he was replaced as minister when the longtime socialist stood down for health reasons in 1996, and he never held another portfolio, although he remained a member of parliament for his Chania constituency on the island of Crete. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.